My name is Saskia. I've got over a decade of experience in running a small business in the needlecraft industry. I'm obsessed with the healing magic of crafting and the power of community. Dreaming big about a world where we rely on value-based businesses, the kindness economy, and where we can fully say, fuck fast fashion. A Smaller Life aims to inspire you to look at your wardrobe differently. Where do you buy? How do you use your clothes? And can you make some of it yourself? We learn from experts in the needlecraft, textile, and creative industry, big names and small, about what it's actually like to run a small business. I'm educated in marketing and photography and learned to do everything else on the job. Selling, pattern and product design, teaching, and running a needlecraft school. As a small business owner, you're in charge of everything. Branding, marketing, selling, promoting, and cleaning the loo. Emotional talks with sellers about wins and woes, product and design, why we do it, how we do it, conscious decision making, and what we need to become the future of fashion without burning out. And I'm determined to lift our scene up for the world to notice so they can step away from fast fashion. I've returned from my holiday in Scotland, which was great, and the day-to-day routine is slowly returning. In all honesty, I was craving it. I've learned that organizing my work to the T, breaking it up into small steps, really works wonders for me and for my productivity, but especially when my days are structured. So the chaos of holiday times is not great for working. It's great for getting ideas though. So embracing different kind of time that I spend and opening myself up to ideas and inspiration really helps to relax and feel like I'm making good use of my time while I'm still being able to let go and unwind. So happy to be back. I hope you liked or loved even the Summer Shorty episodes, but we're back now with some amazing guests and some cool solo shows. My guest on this episode is Melody Hoffman of B Mandarines. She's a well-known knitting pattern designer, forager, and slow living enthusiast. Our conversation focuses on where personal and professional identity meet. Melody is not one to sprinkle around words like branding and pricing and other business topics. It just doesn't really fit with her. When she got her daughter, the boundaries of work and life became a bit more pronounced. We talk about how she organizes her work so that she can take care of her mental health and sustain her business. Lots of gems of wisdom in this one. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Melody, welcome.
Hi.
It's so good to have you on the podcast. It's probably over a decade ago that I first saw your work. Could that be? How long have you been designing?
I have no idea. I don't remember what I had for breakfast. So I think I started knitting 10 years ago. And so designing came, I think, 3 years later, maybe.
Yeah.
That was when I was still living in Latvia. So I would say maybe 2015. And time is passing so quickly now.
Yeah, especially with the last 3-year gap where we were all figuring out where time went. Yeah. So do you want to give us a little bit of a longer introduction of yourself and your work and the journey to getting where you are right now?
So I spent my days with wool, designing patterns. As I said, I started maybe in 2014, 2015. And I've always been inspired by people that were making things with their hands. Both of my grandmas were knitters, even though I've never met them, but it's something that probably runs in the blood, like in many, many different families. But yeah, since like a little girl, I remember going to an ethnographic museum in France and being I just can't even describe the feeling, amazed maybe by all the people in traditional costumes baking bread in the old oven, seeing ladies using the spinning wheel. It was just completely foreign to me because I grew up in the suburbs in Paris with parents that did office jobs, and I was not part of that culture. So it just fascinated me that, this is what people used to do for, not for a living, but for literally living before. And that these days there's people that live off that. It was just mind-blowing to me. And so I followed the traditional path, if you will, and went to high school, went to university, graduated, and just didn't want to pursue longer studies because I just felt that it didn't resonate with me. And it's when I was studying in China that I just realized that that was really not the path for me. I found myself at 21 years old, and I knew kind of, I don't know, I had like a flash of the life that I wanted to live. And being a lawyer wasn't part of that.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask what major were you?
Yeah.
How does that work in France? You choose your direction.
Yeah. So like in high school, you need to choose between basically science and literature. Those are like the two main branches. And so I was always so indecisive because literature is not really well seen anymore. It's like, oh, but what can you do with, languages and French? Like, you're not going to find a job that is going to pay well. So you need to do science and become a doctor or what have you. I've never been good at math, never been good at any of those subjects. So I took literature because I like books, I like languages, I like arts, I like crafts. And I had no idea of what I wanted to do later, but that was kind of like the only option that I had. I kind of wanted to enroll in agricultural high school, but that wasn't a possibility because it was kind of far from where I lived. So I just went to the high school that was the closest to me. And that high school happened to be the first high school in France that taught Chinese. And to me, that was just like, I wanted that so bad. So I took Chinese as my second language. And just before graduating, my Chinese teacher told me that there was this program in university which would allow us to spend a year in China during the third year of the program. So I enrolled in law just for that, basically, just to spend 1 year abroad. And so that year abroad changed everything. I knew that law wasn't for me. The signs from the beginning were there. I chose the path to become who I would be now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And am I right in guessing that your brand name has something to do with your
Yes.
stay in China?
Yeah. So when I was in China, I had a blog called Beijing Mandarin, so Beijing for the capital, and Mandarin for the duck, the Chinese duck. So I combined these two names, and when I kind of started learning knitting in China, and I dropped Beijing and just kept Mandarin and started blogging about knitting. And so the name remained, and then I started using that as a brand name.
That's so cool. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you returned from China, what happened?
So I met my partner there, who's from Latvia. So I spent 1 year in China. Then I was supposed to come back to France to graduate, but I met someone. So I told my parents that I was gonna take a gap year, and I just moved city in China and just lived there for 1 more year. And then it was really time to graduate. So I came back to France, graduated, and told my parents after that that I will not be pursuing that career. We moved to Latvia, and I didn't have a job. I was freshly graduated, but didn't want to pursue that field. So I just picked up knitting and spent days and days and days. I didn't know anyone. We were in the flat in the middle of nowhere, and I was just knitting. And after 6 months, I I think I launched my first pattern, and I don't know, I kept going from there. Just kept working from 8 a.m. until 11 every day for 4 years.
Wow.
And just
So
kept
was
going.
it a conscious like switch that flipped? Like, okay, I designed and now I've done this. I might pursue this as a career, or just did it just
No,
like
I don't like the word career. So I never imagined, like never really thought like, oh, I would be doing this for, X amount of years. And it's just, I think I just became an addict, to be honest. I
right?
just couldn't stop knitting. I just wanted to create more and more and more. And just the wool was like feeding me in a way that I've never experienced before. It's something, I don't know, I've never used my hands. I had never done anything with my hands before. So just finding this craft and just losing myself completely in it, it was just beautiful. I just
Yeah.
couldn't stop. I just wanted to explore all the yarns and just try so many different techniques. And once I started designing like hats and shawls, I was like, okay, now it's time to try something bigger.
Yeah. Do you remember that first
Oh yeah, I was
moment? Was it hard?
terrified. I was terrified of everything. I remember making my first socks and showing it to my partner's grandmother, who was in the Baltics in Scandinavia. They know how to.
They breathe it.
So
They
I
live
showed
and
her.
breathe it.
Yeah. I showed her my sock on DPNs, and there were like holes everywhere. She was like very, very nice and told me that I did such a great job, but it was horrendous.
Oh, I remember my first sock. It was a giant sock. I think that's
Yep.
when I learned what swatches do.
That's where I learned that needle sizes matter,
Oh
actually.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. It's
Because
so funny. Yeah.
I just didn't understand why people were knitting socks on such small needles. I was like, I'm gonna grab 4 millimeter needles and just make socks. That's not how it works.
It's so funny. I think when you talk about what knitting does to your psyche and to your life, lots of people that are listening really get that. It is enriching. It is soul feeding. And you
Yeah,
only know it if you have experienced it. If we would share this with somebody on the street, they would go like, are you
yeah,
nuts?
yeah,
And then you try to explain it like, do you like soccer? Do you like football? um it's that but better. And it just doesn't, you cannot explain it. It is really
no,
making something with your hands and just
yeah,
getting into that flow and forgetting about everything. And then when you move into designing, thinking of an idea and then actually being able to go from the idea to solving the problem of the fact
yeah.
that the design is not there yet. So that's kind
Mm,
of problem solving. And then it's such a rush, such a kick when it
yeah.
does
That's why
work.
I just couldn't stop working. Literally, I didn't have children to take care of. I just had to basically feed myself whenever I remembered to, try to go on walks to get the food.
Yeah.
And that's it. I just was in that state of mind. I just literally couldn't stop.
Wow. Yeah.
It's
I
very unhealthy though, but I
Yes, it
mean,
is. At a certain point, you have to kind of emerge from that vibe and start looking around you. Or did you get like pulled out of it by your partner? Were they?
well, luckily for me, he was not working from home. So I had literally the whole flat that
Aha.
slowly turned into my stash. Literally. He knew that that was work, but it's also a hobby. So it's
Yeah.
just really hard to know, like, is she working, I guess, or is she just like knitting for herself.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That is
can't step
actually
in because
very,
she's gonna be mad.
yeah, it's an interesting topic though, because for knitwear designers, for me, it's even really unclear to people if what I do, is it my work? Is it my hobby? How does that work even? But if you're actually knitting, then it's even more unclear. And
Yeah. Even I'm confused.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'm like,
this is too much fun. Wait. But was your family, your friends, your partner always supportive of this choice? Has it been? Oh, I can see your face. I can see your face.
Well, yeah. I remember one specific Christmas dinner when someone in my family told me that I would literally ruin the whole family.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, for a while, my mom told people that I was making hats.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I think it's maybe a French thing. I don't know. Maybe it's from that generation where they knew to hold on to one job, you know, to stay in the same company, to have security also. Because like when you have children, it's like the first thing that you think. You need obviously money to support your family. So at that time, I was kind of like hurt and upset. But now that I'm a mom, that makes sense.
Yes. But now you're also further along in your career. So let's go back to your designing a little bit, because I'm definitely not here to poke into your family frustrations. So when you design, what inspires you, and what would you say is unique about your designs? Can you paint a picture of what your designs are? How
unique? I don't even know if I could say it's unique, because like
it is because you made it.
I mean, I feel like my work pretty much, it's not that complicated. It's just you need the idea and just like translate it into knitting. It's just the way I think, but it doesn't mean that someone else wouldn't be able to create something, you know, similar. But anyways,
very interesting this. No, I will tell you, it is unique. And I think people can spot your designs. And I can give a go at it. I can tell you what's unique about them, what I think is unique about them. But should I? No, I think I think there's more people out there that do the basic designs, right? And they use a fashionable color, and then they have like this package of something that's easy to knit, but also kind of fashionable, and it's very easy to digest. But with you,
my brain is a little bit more twisted. I can't go straight lines, not for me. It's going round.
Yeah. And I know it's going to sound so corny, but you do have more melody in your designs. It is feminine, it is soft, it is natural.
I like to say whimsical. There's like a whimsical element.
Yes, that was just what I was not going to say whimsical. I was going to say the elements that you use are fun. So fun elements, whimsical, but still very elegant. If you stand in a forest and you're wearing it, the trees and the plants and the animals would go on with their business.
I hope they wouldn't be offended.
No, they wouldn't. But, you know, this is yeah, you blend in. Yeah. No, I think they're really, really lovely. And people obviously get drawn to your work for a reason. It's your designs. I think it's a little bit more than that. I know it's hard to talk about. I'm not going to do all the work. This is your question. Why do you think people come to you?
Well, when you design something, I feel like it has to come from inside, from within. So there's obviously, you know, every time that I birth a new pattern, there's a part of me that goes with it. And I think, you know, it's all the inspiration, all the time that I have spent in nature, all the books that fascinate me, all the, images that, all the dreams. I kind of pour all of that into the designs, and I don't know, maybe that's what translates. I kind of try also to share stories around the patterns, and it's not like creating a fake world around them, but it's kind of my dreams, I guess, that translate into the pictures. So yeah, I think that's a combination of that.
Hello, friends. I just want to say something to you quickly. So, if you're liking the podcast, if you're liking what I'm talking about, consider joining the mailing list. I have bi weekly updates on the podcast and or business insights and tips. The occasional exercise to get you ahead. If you want to actually talk to other business owners about the things that I talk about here on the podcast, why not become a Yavol community member for as little as €8.50 a month? That's like buying me coffee and a croissant. But don't do it for me though. Do it for yourself because I promise that you will get something out of it, either the emails and or the community. So you can either go to the show notes or sign up through yavol.myflowdesk.com/pattern shift. I hope you'll join us. I think so too. I'm trying to talk to crafters, designers, people in our industry, and showing the listener the beauty of it, but also the reality of it. And I've been thinking about our interview, and I think it's kind of hard to ask some questions because you do make such a pretty, beautiful dream world. And I believe almost everything is real, but we also know that when you take a beautiful picture, there's a mess to the left and a mess to the right, usually. She's like, no.
I have a toddler. I have a 3 years old
Exactly.
at home. I think that's just the answer to your question.
Yes. And there will probably be things in your household that do not have natural colors. And they just don't make the frame. But at the same time, just having a little bit conversation about branding, it's like, who are you as a person? Who are you as a brand? Is that the same person? What is conscious? What is not conscious? Can you tell us a little bit about when you were building the Mandarins? How does that work? Is it a conscious thing or is it easy to do for you?
The name came from the blog, and then the designs evolved around pretty much me spending all of my free time in the woods. Because when we were living in that flat in Latvia, the city was quite far away, so the only place that I could really go to was the woods, and that's where I started foraging for mushrooms. During my free time, I started to learn a lot about plants, and it's also something that I've always been interested in. So I think I kind of like all of these things kind of mixed, I guess. And my pictures, I started to take like my pattern pictures in the woods. And I think it just evolved from there. Branding, I don't even like the name branding. It's just, I think it's just an evolution. It just evolved. Definitely. It's just like I have a big picture in my head, and then one design is a small fraction of that idea. Yeah, I guess.
And I think if it's your lifestyle and your work are so connected, we say something here in our house that if we do not let it into the door, it's not in our lives. So you, at any moment, you can make a decision. Is this part of my vision for my life, or is it not? I've lived years without having an idea of what I wanted to be, how I wanted to live. That's an evolution. When you get older, you get closer and closer and closer to the kind of person you want to be, the kind of family you want to grow, all of that. And then when you get to the point where you know what you need and what you want, then it becomes easier to make it all come together. This is how it works for me. Does that work for you in the same way?
Well, for me, kind of like the lifestyle that I started to live when in Latvia is kind of still the same as here. Like, I feel there's very little disconnection between me and the brand, if you will. It's kind of, it's just me, So I don't know, like I'm going to be knitting, for me, is that even work or is that lifestyle? I don't know. I don't know, because this is what I've been doing for 10 years. I just pick the knitting. I go to the woods to forage. I try to make as many things myself as I can. Yeah, it's just everything's linked, really.
Yeah. But you probably wouldn't, let's just go there. You probably wouldn't pick up a bright red acrylic yarn.
No.
No.
But
So
that's,
there's,
yeah,
yeah,
it's not for the branding. It's just me as a person. I just cannot.
exactly.
I
That's where
just
I
cannot.
wanted to go, like the
It's
conscious
not it's not the
lifestyle.
brand, if you will. It's just my choices, my just the things that I want to surround myself with. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that's our strength as creative business owners? Because we do
Mm.
run businesses also, even though it doesn't really, it's not sometimes not really comfortable to talk about it that way, but it brings us an income. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
hobby.
No.
So the way we can keep doing it is to have it close to our values and our
Mm-hmm.
hearts. So a conscious lifestyle
Yeah.
just turns into a conscious way of doing your work.
Yeah. I think that's how it worked for me, because I knew that I didn't want to do a corporate job because it was against my values. So
Mm.
then I picked up knitting, which spoke to my soul. So it's
Yeah.
not like, oh, I want to find a job that will bring me money, and then I don't care about
Mm.
the values and what's around it. It's just I wouldn't be able to do that.
Right. Exactly. And then you bring it to the most awkward topic is money and selling. Like for me, I've always been transparent and clear about it. My partner has an income, can live from that income with my family, but I still think it's very important to be a part of the family in that way. And I really truly believe that we should get paid for the effort that we make. But it's always really complicated. I think I can guess from our earlier the things that we talked about, but how do you feel about selling and pricing and money? How do you deal with that? Where do you find your
So
information?
for me, I think it was a little bit easier than for you because I was new to the industry, but there were already pre-established designers, and kind of like the price range for patterns was, already established. So I just followed, what others were doing. I just, learned from that. I just learned everything on Ravelry, not having to create a shop myself and just like seeing what the prices were. But yeah, charging charging
Mm-hmm.
from something that I create, it's really, really hard. It's
Yeah.
become easier over the years, but it's still really hard. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really hard. And it's interesting though, because if you sell a shoe, you have no problem asking money for that shoe.
Yeah.
You didn't even design it. You just, the shoe was delivered to the shop and then I mean, I make it really simple now, but just
Or
you did
brand.
all that work. You did all the designing, all
Yeah.
the problem solving, all that work, and it's still hard to ask for money because
Yeah.
the value of things
Yeah.
really strongly connects to the value you have of
Yeah.
your work, yourself, your sense of self, all of that. And
And I guess maybe the even hardest thing that money is for me when I create a pattern is it gonna are people gonna like it?
mm,
Money comes after, but like I guess it would be more hurtful if no one would be interested in it, because especially when it comes from here, if it worked before and
mm,
now, like that one, especially if it has like a special place, doesn't work as well.
oh,
You're like,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, it's really hard. It is really hard. And you have a family. How much time do you get to spend on your work? Do you kind of plan it, or is it woven into your day? What does your day to day look like? That's actually my question.
Oh my goodness. It is a mess. It's a mess. We started with 2 days of daycare a week with Iris. So only 2 days of work a week.
Mm,
And then at the beginning of the year, we had to switch to 3 days because I could not squeeze in as much work. I used to work from 8 to 11. So obviously every
yeah.
day for 4 years. So having to work 3 times a week only and still try to somehow take care of myself, feed myself properly, run errands, appointments, it is it is really hard. It is really hard because there's so much I want to do. There's so much I used to do, and I feel that I'm not achieving anything. On the days when Iris is with me, I can always do the knitting if it's, a simple pattern. Knitting is the easy part, but when I have to really sit down and do all the computer work, I need like 5 hours, 6 hours where I'm just by myself with my brain and my thoughts and do the work. This is so hard because there's more work than time.
Absolutely.
So I'm always, like running around the clock and trying to get things done. But...
So do you have some sort of systems in place? Does that work for you? Have you tried it? Have you even found the time to try it?
So I have a really good planner that follows me everywhere. I just know the main things that I have to do during the month. So right. I don't schedule my days. I do weekly schedules, and then I try to, squeeze in tasks whenever I have like a window. Because like I feel if I enter like an item for that day and I don't get it done, then I have to, write it on the next day. That creates anxiety because I feel like I haven't managed to do that day. My self-worth just goes down. So I try to do like a weekly to-do list and try to tackle everything at the end of the week. Doesn't always work, but it's way better for my mental health than having a daily checklist and not managing to do everything.
That's really important to have that self-awareness of what you need and how to make your business sustainable for yourself. I think we have some listeners that are not knitters.
What are you doing?
Why not? You need to start now. Other creatives, let's call them other creatives. But people might think that if you're a knitter, if you're a designer, then you're sitting and you're knitting. But there's so much more work. That's just a part of it.
That's the glamorous part.
That's the glamorous part. Knitting is the glamorous part. But I think one thing that you excel at, that you are so good at, is the communication with the people that are, what do you call them? Your customers, your followers?
Oh, God, no.
But from this side, and that's what matters. Like you have been on Patreon. One of the first people I knew that started doing that. And you have been really consistent, making wonderful videos, really pretty. All those videos take up so much time, I would say, right?
Yes. Well, on Patreon, I upload 2 videos a month, and I've been on Patreon for 4 or 5 years, releasing one new pattern every month. Sometimes I used to publish 2 patterns a month when I didn't have a child. Now it's a little bit more tricky, but I try to put videos on YouTube whenever I have time as well. But once again, time, priorities is I just lack time.
So a craft like knitting, and on one hand takes us back to earlier times when we would be in the moment, in the now, and time would be connected to what we could do, not what we were expecting, or it's hard to explain what I'm trying to say. But now you live in an era where you do that same work, but at the same time, there's social media, there's how to find a way to make your work actually make a living. Would you say doing work like you do, can people actually make a living doing this? Because I've talked to so many people and I haven't asked people directly, and I do not necessarily want to. They can tell me if they want, but I feel like it's so hard to make a realistic living with the time it takes to do a craft and everything that is expected of you.
It takes time.
It does take so much time.
It takes time. It took me, I would say, at least 4 years to finally be able to support myself like fully and have, new opportunities coming in and, be comfortable with the income that I got. It was like, like 4 years of, 8 to 11, 7 days a week and 365 days a year pretty much. So it's a ton of work because in my case, I started from scratch. I didn't know anything about knitting, so I had to learn along the way. So I designed as I was, learning more and more knitting techniques. So maybe in my case, it was slower because I was a beginner. Maybe if someone is already a good knitter, maybe it's easier to start from there. I would say it is definitely possible if consistency and hard work and I guess having ideas that, people like. That's the most important, because if you have a style that no one likes, it's a bit more difficult. Finding your niche, I guess, and and keep working.
Be consistent. And your connection with your followers, customers. I think I am a sensitive person. I sometimes come across as extrovert, but I'm very introvert. I've learned this in the last few years that I need a lot of time by myself to be able to be that extrovert person in the world. And sometimes it's really can get so personal for me. I have trouble being not professional, but like always, who am I in this situation? And it takes up so much energy. How did you figure out to protect yourself? Do you kind of have some barriers set for yourself?
Well, once again, I don't have a lot of people around me. I spend most of my day at home working. So then when it comes to connection, it's online connections, really. And I'm kind of distancing myself more and more from Instagram, mostly because of, the algorithm that it just impacts my well-being a lot, not reaching as many people as I used to. So then I don't know if that's my work that is not interesting people anymore, or if it's because they cannot see. And newsletters take time and it's just not really knowing what's going on. So in that sense, I kind of don't care anymore. I don't care about the posting time. I don't care about they want videos or what have you. I just post whatever I want, whenever I want. It just makes me feel way better. In terms of messaging, for example, I do not check the DMs on Instagram because it's just too much. It's just so overwhelming. I just cannot. I would be spending my day answering those messages. On Ravelry, it's the same thing. I haven't checked the inbox in like 2 years. It's just too much because I feel that I need to preserve that creative energy and I just cannot spend all the time on social medias. So protecting myself in that way is, I guess, valuing that creative energy and preserving it, putting it into the work.
That you've come out. That sounds really healthy. It sounds really healthy and good. I think sometimes it takes a little bit of courage to decide to do these things because you see everyone around you and you kind of automatically assume that everybody is doing this or reacting to this, but they're not. or they are and they're horrible, they're drained. And we need you designers to be creative and great to make some cool things. So we really need you to take care of yourself. So well done.
I'm trying to.
Being a designer in knitting, I think, is important work. It's important that the creatives need to be healthy and happy and do their work because we need them. We need them to make these wonderful designs for us and make our lives a little bit better. But we also kind of need to support that and lift them up, like hold them on our hands. Like, I know how this sounds, and I'm not only talking about you. Maybe that helps to not make it feel so awkward. But going back to Patreon, that's what Patreon is for, right? To show designers that we really understand that this design work is outside of the regular earning a living. It's the regular going to the office, doing law, has a whole, what's the word? Everything is built around that because everybody is choosing that path. So we have to be a little bit alternative, and we have to kind of ask people to give us a little bit extra so that we can do our work right. I've struggled with Patreon with my shop because I thought people are already paying for the products. I thought it was hard to ask them to support my shop. But when I started to podcast, I reinstated the Patreon. First of all, I thought I would like to have people in my community, and that's one spot where they can all and hang out and do things together, but not everybody is up for that. Some people want to be anonymous and want to be in the background. So Patreon came back, and now I feel like I can ask people to help me make this. And I'm slowly and steadily getting more and more transparent about what it's like. I'm not making any money at the moment. I am just paying for what it costs to make a podcast, to offer a community, to offer guidance for small businesses, what I also do. And I have to decide how long do I want to do this before I say this is not a viable business, even though I think it's important work. So you've already have been really open with us and shared that you have an income, but the income also comes from Patreon, right? For people that understand. How important is that for you?
And valuable, because first of all, I feel that people that support me on Patreon, they kind of really understand who I am. They have more understanding of how the patterns come to be. It's kind of like a small window into the whole vision. And then of course the income, it's supporting my family. It's pretty much half of my income comes from Patreon. And it's, a monthly stable revenue for me, which is very good for my mental health, once again, because I know that I can sort of rely on that, this month I'm okay. Next month I will probably be okay in the following month as well. So it's kind of like my parachute, if you will.
Yeah.
I know that at least I have that, and then I can try other sources of income, try to find other sources of income if I want to, if I need to.
Very important.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, all Patreon supporters, for understanding and supporting.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it is really, I think it's not understood enough. I mean, every situation is different, but feeling that you have that amount coming in and being able to do your work without stressing out about it every day is so important. Sometimes to us it seems like logical, but I think it's not said enough out loud. A lot of consumers have no idea. So I'm hoping that people that are listening are going, oh, really? Wow, I've never thought about that.
I think it's mostly for mental health, really. It's mostly for that, because let's say I would want to start working on a new crazy project, and just knowing and fearing what next month would be, it's terrifying when you have a family. So then I don't know if I would pursue that project, because I don't know how long it's going to take me to work on it. I don't know if people are going to like it. So
absolutely. And even on another level, like I will still eat when I don't do this, but in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, how long can I do this? How long can I look in the mirror and do this work without getting paid / valued for it? Because it does connect to value.
Yes,
and
it does.
It is also a mental health thing for me as well. So very important. Right. Talking about crazy projects, what are you working on at the moment?
Well, right now it's 36 degrees, so not much, I'm afraid. I don't think they have released the pattern publicly since February, and I've been working with Plotulopi a lot of unspun yarn, which is not everyone's cup of tea.
Why not? Why not? Because it's in my top 3, I think. So
what comes before that?
Let Lopi.
Really?
Well, I'm also. Okay, do you really want to know?
I do.
I love everything about Icelandic yarn, everything except for the fact that it can be less sustainable in the long run. If you wear it, well, if you have a lot of sweaters, then that wouldn't happen. But my daughter loves them, and they're so lightweight that they're less durable in a way.
Oh.
But at the same time, there's no warmth that compares to it because it's not even warmth. It's kind of a hug.
Yes.
And you cannot explain it. You have to be at that level where you can let go of the itch factor and just get over yourself and just feel what that yarn gives you. And then if you are at that point, and if you do not have 8 sweaters to kind of limit the wear and tear, then the next thing is to step into mending. And I've knit new cuffs and all of that, and I really enjoy that. But that would be my only
issue. Can't relate. I knit sweaters for the whole year.
Yeah. And I know it has everything. Let's do a little bit of Icelandic yarn promo. So it's on an island. It's from native sheep who live there.
Yes.
It's shorn and dyed and spun there. And the only traveling it does is from the island to the shop where you get it.
Yeah. The sheep live their whole life in nature. The spinning mill buys the wool from different farmers. I don't know. I think I could talk about it for, so I've never been to Ice. Oh, well, I've been once, just the airport, but.
Yeah, me too. That counts. I saw some sheep in the distance.
Yeah, it's very
We'll have to go together one day and talk about Icelandic love. But yeah, the itch factor. I think I've had people in my knitting classes that said I can only knit with silk because I'm so sensitive. Silk and, I don't know, superwash merino silk mixtures. And even then they were sensitive.
My mom's like that. She doesn't knit, but like anything slightly woolly, she would not wear it. I just don't get it. Like we literally have the same skin. So I don't know.
Let's take your mom out of this equation and talk about other people. I call BS because I get like red dots on my skin as well.
Psoriasis, literally.
I have eczema. It doesn't matter. It's just a decision. Like your hair is constantly in your neck, and human hair is much more coarse than wool is. Like, right, okay, I've done this a lot. I'm not doing it again, but people, really.
Icelandic wool.
All right, so on your current projects, back to them.
So yeah, I have quite a few Lopi sweaters coming.
Great.
Yeah, I have two. I finished them a while ago. So 2. I have a cardigan in Norwegian yarn. I have Plotulopi socks inspired by Lord of the Rings. I think that's it. I don't remember. They're right there next to the door, but.
And do you have any sneak peeks and something that's juicy that like you can like
the designs?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Are you working together with other people?
Oh, well, basically since welcoming Iris, I've pretty much said no to everything, just once again for mental health reasons and lack of time.
Yeah.
Just because I can't stick to a deadline
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just not possible, and I absolutely hate disappointing people.
Yeah.
So once again, thanks to Patreon, I'm able to support myself and kind of like work on those crazy ideas when I feel like it.
Yeah.
The other day, I got inspired by Lord of the Rings and started creating a pattern, like a sock pattern and a sweater pattern. I don't know if people are gonna like it, but it brought me so much joy creating them, and just, you know, being in Middle Earth for, I don't know, 2 months was just like, yeah. So
That's
nothing
amazing.
juicy, you know, collaboration wise, just like really spending time with myself and kind of diving into those patterns that really speak to my heart, I guess.
I think that's
Makes
so
me really
strong,
happy.
so valuable to learn that if you can do that, that's like a luxury in ways, right? Like, but also having come to that point in your life where you can actually look at yourself and say, this is what I need. And this is where I put up boundaries, as we were talking about before. And same for me, mental health, my physical health. I just at a certain point decided that I need to work around 4 hours to 5 hours a day, or have some days off in a week to keep going. And you kind of make decisions along the way to make that happen. So I just said that I'm not making any money, but you all know that I do have an editor. How does that work? Well, I'm not making money because I'm also paying an editor, because that helps with my mental health. So it's all kind of investing, deciding, but constantly having an eye open for yourself and your family, and kind of not working yourself to the bone. And so I think that's been very, very inspirational. I want to really thank you for opening up and sharing these kinds of things with us. I really have one question left, is if any aspiring designers are listening, what can you tell them that could really help them in their journey?
Don't be afraid. It's not gonna lead you to anywhere. You're not gonna get anywhere. Fear is a roadblock. Just do it. Just do it. Just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep pushing.
Yeah, it really touches me for some reason.
I take that advice to myself as well.
So hard to move and do the things that you fear.
Especially when it's just like yourself. It's you and your head. Your head is saying like no, but your heart is saying like, but I want to. So it's just like putting a block to the head and just following the heart.
Yes. And you don't want to ask for validation, but you kind of need it, and you don't have colleagues.
That's hard. Yeah.
So anyone, send us messages. Say that you love our work, because we love to get those messages.
Yeah. It's terrible because you feel like you're happy with what you've done, you know, you feel fulfilled, but at the same time, if no one's liking it, like, you know, from a business perspective, once again, that's the issue. I would just be designing for myself. That wouldn't be an issue, but
yeah, it's really, really important to have that validation sometimes. And I know you get taught that you need to be strong in yourself, that you don't need that, but that's not the reality. You are pouring your soul into your work, and then people think, well, they're important or well-known designers. They know that. No, they're people. They're people, and
we're just people.
Yeah.
Everyone's a person. Be kind to the other person. You don't know what they're going through. Just be kind and show support and say nice things. And if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything.
One of the best things. Yes, absolutely. It's been really inspirational. Thank you so much. Is there anything you wanted to say that we didn't get round to?
I could talk for hours, and I'm not a talker, but
well, once it's about the thing that really I know that. Yeah, then you can talk forever. Yeah, it's the same. How did I ever start a podcast? Because I love talking about this subject, but it's scary every time. Still do it. So yeah, great advice there. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for your time. We now know how valuable it is. And where can people contact you, support you, find you?
Don't contact me.
Where can people support you and find your work?
When I'm not busy creating, I'm on Instagram, B Mandarines. I recently started a TikTok where I share most of my foraging, slow living, some knitting. It's a wild posy, which is linked to my Instagram.
I will give you all the links in the show notes. Don't worry about it. Of course, Patreon. I think it's time for our next cup of coffee or tea by ourselves to regain our peace. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
A Smaller Life is Jawohl's completely free way for makers and sellers to learn how to be part of a healthier take on clothes and fashion. Jawohl offers an online community where they can connect and inspire each other, monthly topics with challenges for makers, and coaching and support for sellers. We will move the needle. For more information, go to ja-wol.com. Jawohl!